I lived in two places. I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is where I was born, and I also lived in Dallas, Texas. And how I was raised, well, it was a bit of a transient childhood, which meant I was moved around a lot. So I traveled a lot between Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Dallas. And my mother was married to my stepfather, and I lived half of the time with them, my mom and my stepfather, and the other half with my father. And it was a bit of an unconventional childhood. I think my mother wanted me to have a very kind of traditional childhood where I went to school and played sports and played the piano. And my father, when I lived with him in New Mexico, he kind of encouraged me to kind of be myself and do what I wanted. So I read a lot, and I didn't go to school very much. So even though I didn't go to school very much, and I read all the time, so my reading level by the time I was in 8th grade was college level. So I had a kind of strange childhood, which was half of it was very normal, and the other half was very unconventional and kind of about keeping myself educated and learning how to read.
Did you write any stories as a child?
I did. I wrote a lot, actually. They were mostly, back in those days, there wasn't VCRs or DVD players or any of that kind of stuff. There wasn't even cable where we lived, so we had like 4 or 5 channels, and if you saw something you really liked, you couldn't watch it again. You couldn't pop in a VCR, or if it was at the movie theater, you could go see it again. But what I would do is if I saw a movie I really liked, like Star Wars or Psycho, I would immediately, while it was still in my head, on loose leaf paper, write it down, write the story down, and then I would like staple it together in the middle and turn it in, and Star Wars by Mitch Cullin or Psycho by Mitch Cullin. But those are ways that helped me remember those movies because I didn't have any other way to watch them. So those were my first stories. I read a lot of science fiction, a lot of Isaac Asimov and things like that. It was a lot. I read a lot. So my favorites were probably Mark Twain and Dr. Seuss at around that age. Badly, I think. I felt smarter than my teachers, and I felt that the school system was not really geared to children like me. My interests weren't sports, and I was never going to be a mathematician. I liked to read, I was interested in movies, I was interested in very visual kind of things. And I felt often that I was being taught by people who were just, who were there to take care of kind of the majority of students who were going to kind of follow a very conventional path of going to school and then college and then get a corporate job or a job of some kind, and then kind of following a path that had already been laid out for them. And that wasn't really where I was headed. I wanted to do something very creative and something that was distinctly my own. So I felt my education was kind of poor for me. I think for other kids it was very good. They got what they wanted out of it, but it wasn't really geared for me. I went to high school and I barely graduated. I ended up in a very small town that my senior class had 7 students in it, and I wasn't even when we graduated, my senior class of 7 kids, I wasn't even in the top 10%. So. I tell you what, when I first saw it, it was really cool. The first time I ever saw one of my books in the bookstore, it felt really cool. And then you get used to it. It kind of is one of those things you kind of just get used to, and you're not surprised. When I see them in used bookstores, I feel sorry for them. I buy my used books if I can because I feel sorry for them. I'm like, nobody wanted it. And then it's even sadder because I use my credit card to buy them, and they go, oh, Mitch Cullin's buying his own used books. That's really sad. So, yes. I've been working on a book for the last year that I'm about halfway through called, the working title is The Post-War Dream, but it probably won't end up being called that. And it's about gated retirement communities in Arizona and golf and the sarin gas attacks in Japan and cancer and I don't know yet. I can't figure it out. I've been working on it. There is a filmmaker named Terry Gilliam who was in Monty Python, and he's one of my favorite filmmakers, and he made a lot of good movies that I liked, including Monty Python and the Holy Grail and Jabberwocky and Brazil and Time Bandits, and as a child he was just one of those filmmakers that whose films I really related to and really excited me. And so when I had Tideland in the kind of what's called a galley, which is before it comes out in hardback, and there might be typos in it. It's kind of a rough version of the book before it becomes published. I sent it to him, sent it to his agent, not because I wanted him to make it into a film, because I wasn't so sure he would even look at it, and I had no illusions. I knew he had other things going on, and that he probably wouldn't even give it the time of day, but I really wanted just to send it to him to let him know that I was a fan, and look, here's something I did, and I'm one of your freaky creative children in a way, because what you did so influenced what I do. And so the most I was hoping for is maybe getting a little note that I could frame and put on my wall and go show people, like, oh cool, look, Terry Gilliam left me a note. Or that, even better yet, that he would maybe write a little blurb for the book if he really liked it. That was really wishful thinking, but saying, Mitch Cullin wrote a great book, and then they would put on the cover of the book. But in reality, I never expected to hear anything back from him, and I really didn't think that he would ever have any interest in turning it into a film. And about 3 or 4 months after I sent it to him, I'd kind of given up ever hearing back, I got an email from him, and he loved the book, and he loved it so much that he did blurb the book. He gave a nice little comment for it, and I had a really good letter to put on my wall. And he decided, for some reason, he felt that it would be something he would like to turn into a film. And part of that was because he was able to visualize it as he read it, and he saw it, and it clicked for him that way. And also, he had always wanted to do a film. He always wanted to do his version of Alice in Wonderland, but he didn't want to do it kind of the typical Alice in Wonderland. And I think when he read the book, he thought, oh, okay, this might be a way for me to do some of my Alice in Wonderland. So it just worked out. I was very lucky. Not much. It's really close to the book. What they did is, the guy who co-wrote the screenplay with him was a guy named Tony Grissoni, and what they really wanted to do was stay as true to the book as possible. So what they did is they basically compressed everything. So parts in the book where there's no dialogue and it's just visual, they might have taken other parts from the book that had dialogue and they would put it in there. But they just basically, there's little tiny things that are different from the book, but most of it is pretty close to the book. Well, I went up there with Peter I. Chang, and we had a good time. It was very cold in Regina. It was 15 degrees, and that was good. That was in the daytime, and that was good weather. And the cast was wonderful, and everyone was generous. Really, it was nice because I'll tell you what was the really coolest thing for me is that I'd never been around a lot of people who had read the book, and everybody there had read the book. So all these people were coming up to me to talk about the book, and it's the first time ever that I actually was able to talk to people, about the book, and they all were such fans of it, and they loved it, and that was really nice for me. The sets were amazing. They were on 4 sound stages. It's all one building, but they have 4 sound stages, and I think 2 big ones and 2 small ones. So different parts of the film were being shot in different parts of the sound stage. So one sound stage was the downstairs of the farmhouse. The second part was the upstairs of the farmhouse. I can't remember what the other 2 sound stages were. One was the wigwam that the character Dickens hides out in, and I'm looking at Peter. Do you remember what the other sound stage was? We don't remember what the other one was, but they let us go. They let us roam around and look around, and we got to be in the movie. We got a little part in the movie, a little small. You'll see us if they don't cut it out. We're on the bus scene, kind of sitting behind Jeff Bridges, looking annoyed at him, and so. But yeah, everyone was wonderful. We had a good time, and we met everybody there was incredible. Canadians are incredibly nice people.